Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Anchorage, Alaska, as we are now getting set for the start of the annual 50th Iditarod sled dog race. Look at that beautiful trophy with the name of Joe Reddington Sr. on it. He's the guy that started this great race all those years ago, and 49 teams will be vying to take that trophy home. In my opinion, as good a trophies get in all the sports. Great to see everyone again. Greg Heister and Bruce Lee, and we are ready, Bruce. And what a year it is, right? The 50th year. And we'll be talking with a lot of the people that have been around this event for all these years, but did you think it would be here 50 years later?
I don't think anybody thought it'd be here 50 years later. I mean, the first year it was exciting and they weren't even sure teams could make it, and then it was like, well, I might do this a couple years. I mean, think about that, half a century.
Yeah.
What was Alaska
crazy.
Like 50 years ago?
Yeah, and we're going to talk a lot about this throughout this race and try to get some of the old folks involved. I know they'll be hanging out in the city of Anchorage throughout this race. We'll talk with them, we'll get some interviews and bring that to you. We'll also be talking about some of the great locations on the trail. We'll get Bruce's perspective as we go down the Yukon, and we'll talk about the checkpoint, the town of Ruby, and the Honies and Emmett Peters from that area, and we'll move towards the coast and talk about the Terrarics and all of the great dog teams and mushers that came from these different areas on the trail.
Yeah, in 50 years, think how many dog teams have run down this trail. I mean, it's pretty exciting with all the mushers that have accomplished it, but I was doing some rough calculations and, just pick a number of average 16 dogs per team that have run down this trail. Some years it was 20 or more. I mean, it's tens of thousands of dogs have accomplished this race. That's pretty incredible, since the goal was to bring back the sled dog.
Yes, and it is the 50th year, but it's also a chance this year for history to be made. Obviously, Dallas Seavey last year won his 5th Iditarod, tying the great Rick Swenson for the all-time mark. A chance to break that this year and become the only musher in this race's history on its 50th year to win the race 6 times. Are we rooting for Dallas to win?
I'm always, in 50 years of hearing about this, rooting for the person who's never won. That's where I'm at. It's exciting. It brings new energy in. It shares the wealth as far as challenging all the other mushers throughout the world that somebody pulled something new out of the hat. So it's great. No matter who wins, earns it, but it's always exciting to see a new champion.
All right, and we're going to talk a lot about Dallas throughout this show here tonight. We're also going to talk about the other contenders, maybe a few of the rookies as well. Let's start the show, though, by taking about 10 minutes or so and look back at these 50 years of the Iditarod Trail Sled Dog Race.
The year was 1973. The U.S. troops leave Vietnam. Marvin Gaye's smash hit, "Let's Get It On," was the Billboard Song of the Year. And Richard Nixon authorizes the construction of the Alaska Pipeline 50 years ago. But making few headlines, the culmination of a dream and losing bet would put 34 dog teams at Tudor Track in Anchorage to begin what many thought would be a 1,000-mile direct route into the heart of an unforgettable disaster.
The atmosphere at the starting line was, if anybody can make it, I can make it. And that was everyone's attitude, But you're right, we didn't know if we could.
I'm going to go. I said, I'm going to go on in that race. I knew nothing else about it. It's just that it was going to happen. If it was going to happen, I was going to be there.
But it was some devil take the hindmost, wild, every man for himself, pick your own route across the wilds of Alaska. It was exactly what I had come north to find.
I looked at the race through the eyes of P.T. Barnum. He would have loved it. It's a circus. It's a big circus. It's a circus that has all the elements. It's been the greatest show on earth.
Joe Reddington and his pit crew worked and smoothed and bedazzled their way to this impossible venture. 1,000 miles across the Alaska wilderness, sidestepping all of the challengers, a spirit that would give birth to a lifestyle, a legacy, and a tradition that all these years later remains. fascination or allure would be the drug for the brave souls who first signed up. And don't forget the purse that was promised but was unfulfilled when Dick Wilmarth, bib number 33, left for Nome and the great unknown.
My good friend George Atlas said, well, you know, you can run a dog team 100 miles a day, and so we should be in Nome in 10 days. Wilmarth got there in 20 days, you know, and won the race. Because I like to say that we all were winners that year, and he just got first prize, that's all.
Well, it was a pretty girl. She was Miss Nome. She came over and she was going to kiss me. I didn't kiss her. I figured I smelled too bad.
George Atlas said in Nome while we were waiting around, he called it the Great Camping Trip. And that's pretty much what it was, I think, first race.
I was gone 45 days from the time I left home till I finally got back. And of course I left her with our 10 children. That almost cost me everything.
Who would have known? This one-year race would become an institution, a symbol of a state known as the last frontier. And internationally known, a ghost town, the namesake of a dream, and gold of a certain kind that would flow down the Yukon. Who would have known? Volunteers migrated, ready to forge, pilots eager to fly, communities a warm invite, and a town, a cold, brutal town with a wind that rattled and burned, a finish line marked by Kool-Aid, and an arch hovering over a dream. A dream to race, a dream to unite, a dream to protect one of Alaska's greatest gifts, the sled dog. Joe Reddington piloted the dream. He last ran his race in 1997 at the ripe old age of 80 years old. He finished his race 15 times. The first native Alaskan champion, Carl Huntington, and others like the Yukon Fox, Jerry Riley, the Inupiaq, John Baker, and the Kid, Pete Kaiser. Dick Mackey and a 1-second margin. His kiss with immortality by a dog's nose. A legend of the game. Libby Riddles became the first woman to win the race in 1985, went headfirst into a devastating storm to find the finish line first. Susan Butcher, the sergeant, but man did she take this to another level, focusing the eyes of the world on this event, proving that the dog's wellness was the key to victory. Rick Swenson, the first to 5, a survivalist, and a driver who seemed to fit on the runners like a giant redwood, rigid and unrelenting. A Joe named May. Rick Mackey, a fisherman named Osmar, and Old Joe, a trapper from the Yukon. The era of speed, Boozer, King, and Swingley, 10 consecutive years, and 6 speed records set, a bevy of 4-time winners. Norway is in the house. Robert Sorley won 2 of 3, and Yor and Thomas have made 3 from across the pond. A Seavey who followed his father down the trail has gotten there first 3 times. No hitch in Mitch's giddy-up. Lance Mackey, the incomparable Lance Mackey, 4 in a row, survived cancer, survived life. And Dallas Seavey, the phenom, an era that was looming and predictable, and he may put his name at the very top. And then there are the names with no voice. But man, did they have influence. Like Nugget, Red and Bullet, Granite and Furlan and Andy, Blondie and Fearless, Elmer and Pepe, Salem and Larry, Snickers and Velvet and Reef. It's a history striped with names. Reddington, Mackey, Seavey, Boozer, King, Butcher, Swenson, John Rowe. Immortality, a spot in history. But hundreds, thousands of names, like Larry Thompson, the first pilot of the Iditarod, Terry Atkins, the first veterinarian, Joe and Norma Delia. Headliners, but a list of names that would take 50 years to read. All who volunteered, all who gave and continue to give to a race and a dream. Volunteers from all walks of life and every corner of the globe to give to that dream. And 50 years later, it's alive and it's well. This dream.
Old man Reddington had a dream, and people wanted to see it happen, you know, and that's why we're here today.
The greatest thing that the Iditarod ever accomplished was saving sled dogs. Sled dogs were the mode of transportation for hundreds of years in Alaska. And I think the Iditarod saved it. I think that's the most important thing that the Iditarod has done.
Before my dad died, Colonel Vaughn come out and was talking to him. He said, now, Joe, when you get to heaven now, it ain't gonna be long and I'm gonna get there and I'm gonna need some dogs. And so try to find me a good dog team time I get there.
People mush dogs all over the state. Why can't we go to Nome? It's that simple. There's a lot of us who, you know, Joe was older than most of us. And a lot of us, yeah, we can do this. And by gum, we did.
I hope I'm as popular as Joe Reddington Sr. was when I leave this earth. That guy is an incredible person that's done an incredible amount of good for this state. And here we are today in memory of him racing the Iditarod.
But I think all of us owe a lot to old Joe Reddington.
It's hard to smash 50 years of this race in 10 minutes. We hope we got the highlights in there. But I think that's what I love about this race and this event, the community. It's so textured. It's so deep. There are so many stories that literally you could spend decades talking about. But it does also have those key people, like a Susan Butcher, like a Joe Reddington Sr. or Rick Swenson, the people that we highlighted in that video. It does have those iconic images of people.
Yeah, and coming from the mushing community myself, I mean, what those people did to raise the bar is how the rest of us compare ourselves. Like, what did they do for dog care? What did they do to develop strategies, the different ways of running the Iditarod? How did they innovate equipment? So they're not only icons because of how they finished, which was well, because of those innovations, but I think as mushers, we look at them for the innovations in dog care, strategies, all those other things that got them to that position. Because now you can look back and look at race schedules for 50 years. You can look at ways people ran this race, but particularly in that first, say, 15 years or 20 years even, everything was virgin territory. It was all new, and it was an exciting time to be a part of that when the sport was developing so rapidly with innovation.
And of course, one of those iconic names, Joe Reddington Sr., the man really credited with beginning this Iditarod. Let's take a moment now and hear from others that knew Joe well what he was all about.
He was was good. He made us boys work when we was young, and he did good. We fished, and we did real good. A good dad. And, he come here and homesteaded in 1948, and yeah, he was definitely in the dogs. He loved dogs more than anybody I ever seen. He was definitely a dog person.
But Joe and I became very fast friends very quickly, and I loved Joe a lot. He was a good man.
He was the general, and I was one of his lieutenants, and he was good at giving orders, and there was some of us, I guess, that were pretty good at following orders, but he didn't ever intend on being known as the father of the Iditarod. That wasn't it. It was to preserve sled dogs.
My dad was a good talker and good and smart. He was never went to school too far, but he read a lot and he was sharp on a lot of things. He could get people together, you know, and he knew how to, and good things. Anything he did good. Like climbing a mountain, or anything he did, he always produced. I mean, he didn't do things just go out here to do it. I mean, when he got ready to do something, he did it.
First year I ran the race, I got to Roan River where everybody's taking layovers, and my food wasn't there. I didn't have any food bags. They hadn't made it. Several people's food hadn't made it. And Joe had sent out more food than anybody. He probably sent out 3,000 pounds of food. He said, well, I can give you some meat and some kibble and some, so he brought over a bag that must have weighed 30 pounds, and he just donated it to me, along with a couple other mushers. He was very generous that way and very helpful, and yeah, sort of a mentor to a lot of us. Yeah. And not just on dog mushing, and just how to be a great guy and how to, treat your competitors.
A lot of good memories. We ran a lot of trails together. We did a lot of training together, and he was a good guy.
Joe was just such a human, he was so human, and he cared about people. He cared about mushers. He helped a lot of mushers, and he cared about the race a lot. He really cared about the race, and yeah, I know he's the father of Iditarod, and that's great. But he was a human being who really loved this whole atmosphere. The whole idea of the Iditarod and racing anywhere, his idea was not necessarily to have a race. His idea was to perpetuate the sport of mushing, because it was going out of style when the Iditarod started.
The ultimate promoter of what we do, Joe was, great man. Definitely was willing to speak his mind on many subjects. Sometimes I would travel with Joe, actually post-race, where he'd get in a bit of a conflict with somebody and he would act like he couldn't hear him. And of course, he heard every word, and I heard all about it when I got back in the truck with him. But no, it's been fun to follow him and through all this, and his family too.
Like your earliest memories, was there always a yard full of dogs?
Yep, he always had dogs. I think he picked up a couple before he even got to Connect. He come to Connect because Connect was really a nice place years ago. There wasn't that many people. Still nice, but you could fish and a lot of moose, and I think Connect was really a pretty awesome place.
The can-do attitude, right? Like that's who Joe was. Like he.
Don't
tell him it couldn't get done.
Oh no, there was, and that's how I would like to live my Iditarod career too. Is it's going to happen. It's always going to happen. It's going to continue for years and years and years. Forget about our naysayers and everything else. It's the passion of so many people worldwide. But Joe would get it done. He'd call in favors. He was connected well enough, but that spirit, it's just like we're going to Nome.
Joe, what we'd like to do is just move you up just on the other side of the arch because we have another team right behind you, but we want to stay ahead and stay right and shoot, of course, but let's just move you up a little bit.
Okay. It's a hard race even for a 20-year-old, I think. So I'm well satisfied with what I did.
Joe, this is your race. Are you full of pride right now getting here?
Well, I'm proud of the race. And I think it's been great. I think it's great for Alaska, especially great for Anchorage and Nome, and great for the dogs and the mushers.
I could do this a few more years here.
One of my favorite Joe Redington stories is we all trained in Trappers Creek off the Petersville Road. Joe was ahead of us mushing to one of his camps up there off of the Petersville Road, and his dogs were on that ledge of trail, and he gave him a command to go down into the gully. But the dogs had clung on to that lip of trail. Joe sets the hook and he deliberately pulls the dogs down into that gully. And I think there was a traffic jam behind us, and later a young guy says, "Why did you do that? They were going to make it." I told him to go down there, he said, you know. So he, the dog man that he was, he anticipated the sled was probably going to slither down there. He might as well try to be in charge, give him a command to go down there so he would succeed. And so he did, you know. So that's a story that sits with me because we trained in the same area all the time, and it shows the consistency that you have to, or the foresight, or the thinking, the mindset that you have to work with those dogs and be the leader that they expect you to be.
Just in there, he just loved the dogs. Even when he was sick and everything, he was leading dogs around. I don't know how he did it. He was losing weight a lot, and he was always walking the dogs and things like that. And I don't know how he did it, but he was just into dogs. He loved the dogs and everything more than probably anybody. And he knew they could go a long ways. And, you know, a lot of people didn't think, you know, going 50 miles and everything. The dogs today love to go 50 miles.
I think your dad envisioned that 50 years later, there would still be a dog race to Nome? Did he think about it that way?
He did, yeah. Yeah, he probably think that there would be.
Yeah.
He was in a dog racing. You know, he told people, he said, well, we're going to have a race and everything. People was getting rid of dogs and everything, getting snow machines and everything, and he wanted the dog. He wanted the people to keep the dogs, and that's why we got the Iditarod race. He wanted people in the villages to get dogs and get involved with the race and everything. Yeah, he was definitely good with the dogs and good with people. Well, we feel good and we're glad it went. You know, everybody thought after we had the first race we wouldn't have an Iditarod, but so many people was into it that that's why it's going 50 years.
I remember Joe, this was right toward the end of his life, and he was very sick, and he knew he wasn't going to live long, and we were sitting around having some bite to eat and some tea and stuff, and so he's talking about which dog he's going to breed to which dog and how that dog is going to do a couple years from now, and we had a hell of a good time just chatting about the future, and you could see he's about finished, you know, so it was he was very optimistic and still 100% with it mentally. Just yeah, great guy.
Joe Redington was, I don't know, 14 years older than I was, I think. But he became my dad. We were really close. I know when he had cancer, I called up. Wife and I, we were living in Nenana at the time, and said, you better get down here and see Joe. And we got down there, and that was the last time he ever was in his dog lot. But he was like a lot of people back in those days. When he put his mind to it, he wouldn't take it no for an excuse. He was gonna do it.
He was sponsored by a pie company, Silk Pies, and somehow they got messed up and sent us everyone to one checkpoint. My dad was giving pie to everybody, all the checkpoints. Yeah, it was good. Yeah.
Do you miss him, Ramey?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's how it is nowadays. When you get older, everybody in Connect now. I'm the oldest one there now.
But I think we all of us owe a lot to old Joe Reddington.
You know, when I first moved to Alaska in the early 90s, Joe Reddington was still a huge part of the community, a huge part of getting people involved. His dogs seemed to be everywhere. What was your experience with Joe? Did you have any?
Yeah, I guess the biggest thing I'd say about Joe was he was kind and welcoming to anybody who was interested in sled dogs. And he spent his life promoting what incredible athletes, beings these sled dogs are. His tool to do that was the Iditarod, but he was, you know, he freighted out crash planes for the military out of the Alaska range with sled dogs. He knew what they could do. Racing was just an avenue to bring more people in. But as a man himself, Joe was always kind to everyone and very welcoming to anybody that showed up at his dog yard that wanted to run sled dogs.
And really, he lived one of the great lives in this state's history. There's been a lot of books and articles written about Joe. But you know, what people maybe don't realize is that he didn't start this race till he was in his mid-50s. He ran his last Iditarod at 80. I mean, think about that for a moment.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
And now most mushers want to be done when they're 50.
Yeah, and I think he finished 36th out of 70-some teams that year in 1997. I was there at the finish line. You saw some of the video there. That was a young Mark Nordman at the finish line there as well, greeting Joe and Vi.
Well, I think one year when he was in his 70s, 1988 if I recall, Joe finished 5th.
Yeah,
and
crazy.
For a while he led this race.
Yeah.
In a year a lot like this where there was a load of snow and he made some moves and let the trail set up. I mean, he was always thinking about being competitive. He wasn't just camping.
It was truly an iconic life. The race has missed Joe Reddington for sure. There's so many names, and you hate to do all of this stuff and leave people out, but I think with Joe and also Susan Butcher, we have to spend time talking about these two characters of the past. Bruce, I sat a bunch of people down a month ago here in Alaska, and my message to them was, what do we need to take from the 70s, the 80s, and 90s and move forward with to make sure that it's never forgotten? What Susan Butcher did for this event, for this race, must never be forgotten. You knew Susan well.
Yeah, I always enjoyed Susan, and you know, a lot of people talk about what Susan brought to the race, that her dog care was impeccable, and she did do that. But in all fairness, so did Rick Swinson. I knew them both. And look what happened with those two. They dominated this event for 9 years, actually more than that, but 9 wins between them. But Susan had an incredible capability of figuring out the potential of each dog and building teams. She knew dog bloodlines like no one I ever knew. She could spot a dog from a litter from years ago and know that bloodline. That was her, I think, biggest accomplishment, was maximizing the potential in each individual dog. But Susan really enjoyed being out. Susan enjoyed running dogs. And I'll tell you where you can see it. Look at any photograph of Susan. She had the greatest smile in the world.
Yeah, the best.
And when I think of Susan, I mean, a lot of people think of her as, you know, this tough, hardcore competitor. When I think of Susan, I think of her laughing. She just enjoyed being in a checkpoint and visiting with people. And yeah, she figured out the edges of being competitive, but she enjoyed the life. And look at that smile on Susan. She had it all the time. And she had a great laugh, and she laughed a lot out on the trail.
Here's more about Susan Butcher.
When Susan first started running, then it was much more of I think, a macho sport, and that's why she wasn't accepted a lot, is because she cared for her dog so meticulously, and it was looked on somewhat as a sign of weakness. And they said, Susan will never win the race because she babies her dogs. And then, of course, when she started winning, they said, well, it's no wonder Susan wins. She takes the best care of her dogs. And I honestly believe that was somewhat of a tipping point in the recognition that these are professional athletes and you have to take care of them, not only physically training, but nutritionally and veterinary care all year long.
What can we never forget about Susan Butcher?
Oh, just the tenacity and the brilliance and her desire to win the race was pretty remarkable to me. I mean, she really wanted to win against men. And, at that point in time, women, the Dee Dee Johnroe and Libby Riddles and Susan, they weren't given the total respect that they should have been. And so it was fun for her just to kick some butt for a little bit, 4 years. And now look at it, how many young women are really good mushers and have the opportunity that Susan Butcher presented to the world.
She was my mentor. Once she saw I was serious, took her a year or two to realize that, I wasn't just trying to do it for a fling, but I was really into it. She really encouraged me and helped me. And then, there were years that I ran some of her young dogs. There's a lot I had to learn. And Susan and David both really helped me with that. But this was before they were married, before they knew each other. When we bonded over things that happened on the trail and experiences off the trail and life experiences, we became friends. But we were still vicious competitors in that Susan was anxious to encourage me, but not teach me how to beat her. And I gotta say, my goal was I would like to beat her before she retires.
It was a big transition also, I think, for the men to recognize that women compete on an equal footing because you're not the athlete yourself, really. You're the coach, you're the manager, you're the physical therapist, you're the trainer. And by taking the responsibilities on the part of the person, it could be a man or a woman that can do it.
The National Geographic window, happened to do Susan, not only being a woman, not only being a good dog person, the drive, the determination. It happened to combine all that with exposure and public recognition. That was awesome for the sport. I mean, she was awesome for the sport, but more so than just being good with her dogs and having competitive teams, it was also great for the Iditarod because it opened that window of the proverbial, Iditarod where men are men and women win the Iditarod t-shirts, a few years of female dominance. We all know Iditarod is gender neutral. The dogs don't care whether you're a guy or a girl or whatever, and they just happy to be with you. But I think the general public kind of looked at that incredibly challenging adventure with more open eyes because it was a couple of women doing really good in those 80s years.
And very proud of Libby's accomplishment there. It broke Susan's heart, because she was in that race and a moose stomped her team and took her out of that race. And then she came off a whirlwind, 1986, 1987, 1988. I think Runyon beat her in 89, 1990, and she was a terror. It was good for the sport. It was good for the world, too. It was good for women's sports all over to have Susan Butcher step up like that.
What we did early on is we started flying straw out to the checkpoints on our own money. And I know people didn't like that at first because they went, oh, she's just babying again. But in reality, what they saw later is look at how well rested they are when they pop off the snow or pop off the straw. And I think after that, it was shortly after that the Iditarod started supplying straw itself. Now, when you have dogs resting well, when you have the use of booties, when you have a great diet, the key to this race is run, rest, recover. And if you can do that, you can keep your speed up, and by doing that, you can give them more time to rest. And of course, that's what they need between each run.
The Gates family, you know, they had come up and Susan had put them in this wall tent or little cabin to be 40, 50 below, and they stay like 10 days, 2 weeks. It was no frills, you know. It was just the roughest life. And Melinda Gates, they're separated or divorced now, whatever. She told me up at Susan's funeral that it changed her life. And but they had a very broad expanse. George Lucas, you know, with all his movies, and it's just amazing the people that they came to know, and people came to respect them.
Well, we need to remember the girl was focused. I mean, the nickname Sergeant Susan wasn't just like, you know, without purpose. I mean, that lady was totally 100% focused. And when she was in the zone, she would bark commands. She was the epitome of organization. I remember going to visit her kennel in the off season, and all her equipment was filed and labeled and in clear boxes, and you know, and I thought, oh boy, I gotta get my act together. And she knew dogs. I mean, that's one thing is Susan could look at a dog and she could say, that's this bloodline, that's that bloodline. And she was up early and she was at it and she was focused, and the whole kennel was focused. Her breeding program was, her feeding program was, anything she learned. She never thought she knew it all. Although I have to say, there was one time when somebody said something to her about, you just run the same schedule, like up the coast or something. And she goes, till you beat me, why should I change? And I remember that too, you know, thinking, you know, truthfully, why do you mess with perfect?
I think what you've seen today is a result of the transition that happened when Susan first started winning the Iditarod in 1986. It was never about other people, it was always about the dogs. And she first lived in the Wrangell Mountains for about 3 years alone, and it was just her and her dogs out there. And that was probably one of the times she enjoyed the most in her life. And I think when the Iditarod started and she realized that here was a way for me to showcase the care and the ability that my dogs have, she just took what she'd already developed on her own and applied it to her racing in the Iditarod. And I think that really showed in how quickly she ascended from rookie to, you know, top 5 and ultimately winning. And nowadays, I think what she'd be the most proud of is the fact they don't say, oh, a woman run the race. They say the best team was run by. That's all they care about is the dogs.
I think David's done a fabulous job keeping Susan in the forefront. Susan should be there. I mean, she's a 4-time champion, many in a row. Her career is remarkable, and you know, her fight with cancer was remarkable. And her ability to leave 2 girls behind that carry the legacy, thanks to not only her past, but also to David's, you know, direction. Those are remarkable girls.
All right, Bruce, the great Susan Butcher, man, has she missed, especially in this day and age in this race, where we could really use characters like Joe Reddington Sr. and Susan Butcher. Let's talk about this year's trail. Obviously, COVID still looms. It is still affecting the event. However, we're going back to Nome.
Yeah.
We're going back to Nome for the 50th year. That's a big deal.
Yeah, and for a lot of us, the Bering Sea coast and Nome, that whole run is really the epitome of the Iditarod. There's just the iconic scenes, but also it's just, that's where the hardcore Alaska is, from that run from Old Woman to Unalakleet up the coast, the storms, just everything that's happened there. A lot of history out there.
Let's take a look at this map. And Bruce, I know in south central Alaska, we'll start again this year in Willow. Been a lot of snow. Things have warmed, there's a lot of rain, there's a crust on it, but it's deep, it could be hollow underneath. A lot of unknowns here in the early days of the race coming as we go over the Alaska range.
There is, and the prediction is for it to be unusually warm, which I think we'll see the teams switch their schedules around where they will basically rest all the time in the heat of the day and run all night long while it's best for the dogs. You almost have to do that if it's in the mid 30s to low 40s getting up to the Alaska range. And if a team gets caught on a schedule that forces them to run during the day, which some will, what it means is they'll go slower. And it starts knocking off your time. You're getting farther behind. And this crusty snow we have down here in Anchorage, if it's like that as they move on up to Finger Lake, the trail will change greatly from night to day.
Bruce, the teams will get over the Alaska range, hit Nikolai, McGrath, Ophir, no Takotna this year, the halfway point of Cripple. Different strategies could evolve here without Takotna, the favorite place of many to take a 24-hour rest. How do you see all this playing out? Because this is an interesting area in the trail.
It's always been a gutsy move to go to Cripple because if the weather turns bad on those front teams going out there and the trail's not good, and then they pack down the trail and teams come up behind them and accomplish those same miles in less time, then you put yourself at a deficit of time. But I think a bigger player in this is going to be this weather. If we're going from above freezing to below freezing with the snow, the metamorphosis that will happen with the snow is that the trail will get soft and punchy. As you said, record deep snow like at Denali Park, 5 feet of snow in December alone, record. So a lot of areas have extremely deep snow. That snow gets soft and the trail gets punchy. It's like running on a beach where the dogs are sinking in. Then if it sets up at night and someone's on the right schedule, say to take advantage of that and go to Cripple, that trail's gonna be hard and fast. So we're gonna see that interplay of Alaska weather, including the past deep snow and those rest schedules as far as night and day.
Yeah, and then it'll be the great mystery, right? Because if you set it up to take your 24-hour in Cripple, and with this warm weather, snow can come, and you can get 6 inches of snow out there real easy. It could completely change the trail and make things difficult. So it is interesting this year without Takotna there. We're bummed we're not going to go to Takotna. Such a big part of this race's history. However, it will put a different wrinkle into the strategy and may make it interesting to watch. The Yukon River, when you look at the kind of the extended weather forecast, Bruce, it looks like it might be like 10 degrees at night, 35 degrees during the day. So you're going to get softness and then it's going to crust up at night. It could be a blistering fast trail all the way to Nome if that's the case the whole way.
It could be really fast. And you don't want to be on that Yukon River if it's 35 degrees because you're sitting down in a river valley, and if there's no wind, it heats up. It's like you're just out on a beach with the sun baking down on you, and the dogs get so slow because there's no stimulus. The Yukon River is over a mile wide. There's not smells of ptarmigan and moose and all this stuff, and coming around corners, it's just looking, okay, the river's so long, we're gonna go down there the next 3 miles, I can already see it. But if you run that at night and it's hard, like you said, it could be fast.
Of course, the Bering Sea coast is what the Bering Sea coast is as a television guy. We want these storylines to kind of evolve, and then we want this big storm to happen like 1991 and 1985 and the others where a team has to go through a storm to win the race. It doesn't happen often, but we hope for that. But if it doesn't, it could be a glared trail all the way to that finish line.
Could.
Yeah.
It also could have a lot of overflow at all the creek crossings. You also can get overflow on top of sea ice, and that gets a little spooky. So the trail sometimes changes, particularly between Shatulak and Koyak, if you get overflow out on the sea ice, and then the trail gets a little longer. Also going to White Mountain, the trail has had to be rerouted. And I understand right now there's no ice around outside of Elam, and they're going to use the overland trail, which is a little longer, a little tougher up and down. So all those things come into play. Now,
we like tough.
Every team's on an equal playing field. They've all got to go through it. But I'm going to be really anxious this year to see how it throws some people off their game, just not having that Tecate 24-hour spot. Because you're right, that is a favorite of the majority of the racers. Not all, but what are they going to do? Stop in McGrath, maybe stop early at Nikolai to get on a better time schedule? But somebody's always going to go to Qrill.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a moment now and talk about the Iditarod Insider. We will be out there in force again this year. We have enhanced live streams coming your way, 3 different locations at a time. We'll have the same crew camera-wise out there. We'll be uploading all kinds of content. And so we hope to be able to bring this race to you like we've never brought it to you before. And we're excited again to be out there, especially in this golden year of the Iditarod, the 50th year. It's important for all out there that are a fan of any level of the Iditarod or these dogs or these landscapes, or even if you're a fan of the state of Alaska, support the Iditarod. The best way you can do that is by becoming an Iditarod Insider. It's a subscription price that will get you literally hours and hours and hours of footage and interviews and sound and shots of these landscapes and these dogs going across these landscapes and interviews with these great people who have committed their lives to both this lifestyle and this race. But it is really important going forward. The anti-Iditarod people out there cannot get to the Iditarod Insider. PETA cannot affect us. If you believe in this race, if you believe in the mission of the sled dog, if you believe in this at all, your support of the last great race goes a long ways. Please become an Iditarod Insider. Call your family members, call your friends, get them all on board. And let's take control of this thing back and make sure that we are controlling the narrative of why Joe Redington started this race all those years ago to save this sled dog and to ensure that these dogs will continue to run from Anchorage to Nome for the next 50 years. You can do that by becoming an Iditarod Insider. Let's take a time out. When we come back, we'll get to the mushers list. Who are the contenders? Can anybody beat Dallas Seavey in the 50th race? Are there rookies out there to keep an eye on? Will Milla Porcil be the first woman to win this race since 1990? We'll talk about all of that when we come back.
I'm Pete Kaiser, born and raised in Bethel, Alaska, and I've been running dogs my whole life. Safety is a very important aspect while running a race like the Iditarod, and we actually put more miles in training out alone on the trail during the year than we do during the Iditarod. You got to have the right gear on. You look at the weather forecast, face masks, mittens, parkas, all the same gear every time. We carry stuff like rain gear just in case. It sounds crazy, but we run into some really crazy weather out there. So you really got to be prepared for anything from 50 below to 40 above. My success has been just part of a huge puzzle, and the key to a lot of that has been support from Donlin Gold. So I'm very, very appreciative to Donlin and what they've done for us.
Hi, I'm Greg Heister, and we are getting close to the start of another Iditarod sled dog race. And I just wanted to take a few moments to say hello, number one, and number two, to let you know that the Insider team will be again out on the trail in full force this year, bringing you all of that great content that you have enjoyed for years now, with grand improvements. If you've been watching, then you know all about the Qrill Paws Arctic World Series. The Iditarod is the culminating race in that coverage, and the entire team that you saw in Minnesota, Norway, and Russia will be here with analysis and in-depth coverage that you enjoyed in all of those races. Our tracker has been updated with a new look, a new experience, new graphics and information. It's going to be easier for you to now follow your favorite team and mushers. Trust me, you're going to love it. So ladies and gentlemen, your investment today will allow these dogs to keep running down the trail and to perpetuate their purpose for years to come. So please, become an insider today. I'm Greg Heister. Thank you for your time, and we hope to see each and every one of you out on the Iditarod Trail.
It's hard to explain Alaska to people from the outside. So we don't. Our job is just to set the stage and let Alaskans speak for themselves. Look out, world. GCI, Alaska's most advanced network.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Greg and Bruce, we're still here and still getting excited now about the 50th annual start of the Iditarod sled dog race. Let's run through the mushers list and then we'll get Bruce's favorite contenders when we come out of that.
Sean Williams is back again and will be racing in memory of his mother, Patricia Daniel Williams. Sean withdrew on the eve of the race last year to be by her side in her final days. You may know Sean from the Alaska Mushing School and as another Martin Boozer disciple. We hope Sean has a great race.
A friend actually bet me that we wouldn't come to Alaska, and so I had to make it happen. And then one thing led to another, and 10 or 12 years later, here we are. The thing that actually concerns me most is figuring out enough daycare and people to travel up here to help watch my son while my wife is by herself parenting when I'm gone.
Nick Petit was set to go second, but he's had to withdraw because of a positive COVID test. Nick won't go, but his dogs will. Four-time champion Jeff King has stepped in, and he will now drive this contending team of dogs to Nome.
And back for her 12th Iditarod is Canadian Michelle Phillips. Just missed the top 10 a year ago with an 11th place finish. Has 8 top 20 finishes to her name. A resident of the Yukon Territories in Canada. She grew up an ice skater. You might see her do a triple Lutz on the ice of the Bering Sea. Paige Drobny, the final musher in 2021, will be the 4th musher out wearing bib number 5 this year, a 19th place finish last year, but 2 top 7 places prior to that. She had never been on a dog team prior to 2006.
Best decision we ever made.
Why?
I mean, the dogs are happy every day. Like, look at this creature, you know? He's like so much fun. Like every day these dogs make us smile and laugh, and you feel like, if you wake up in a bad mood, you come outside and like every dog here is like, this is the greatest day in the world. And so you can't disagree with them, It's like, you're right, this is the greatest day in the world.
Martin Massicati will be next. He's from Quebec, Canada, back for another attempt at the finish line. He did not complete the race in 2020, and he wants to welcome all the racers to the start line and wish them all luck on this journey.
Hi, my name is Martin Massicati from Quebec. I come racing the Iditarod. It's the old dream. Good luck, all musher.
He's all in. Jesse Holmes spends his time training his dogs and living out the Denali Highway, a TV star, and a musher committed to knocking on the door of winning. He'll be the 6th musher to leave the line wearing bib number 7. 2 top 10 finishes in 4 attempts at the finish line. He could be a team to watch.
I think it's beautiful to see all the dogs get to be able to be loose because they enjoy it so much. You can see just how much fun they're having. I mean, yeah, they're on a chain on a doghouse, for the night and for part of the day, but every day our dogs get to get off and go do something and have fun and get exercise, and that's very mentally stimulating to the dogs.
One thing you can always count on in this race, Ramey Smith will be in the top 20. His father, one of the originals in this race, Bud Smith. His mother, Lolly Medley, one of the first women to run the race. It's number 25 for Ramey, 12 top 10 finishes, and he's never finished higher than 21st. Bib number 9 will be Anna Barrington, her 10th Iditarod. She finished 24th a year ago. She and her sister Christy have become mainstays in this event as they pile up impressive finishes. Anna has been in the top 25 her last 3 times. Is this the year a Barrington will challenge into that lead pack?
It's hard when you're trying to field 2 teams out of 1 kennel and you want both teams to do the best you can. Like the fact that we broke into the top 20 the other year, like that was awesome and difficult too. So I think that when you try to do that with 2 teams, it gets kind of hard, and you start to spread yourself a little thin. And yeah, I kind of been wondering, it's like how good could we really do if we just put it all on one team, you know, put it all on red and bet it all.
Bib number 10, Matthew Fahler, a former champion of the Kuskokwim 300 and a multi-time humanitarian award winner in mid-distance races, has set his sights on an Iditarod championship. From the Martin Boozer coaching tree, Matthew will look to better his 21st place finish last year and his best finish of 13th in 2018.
And I'm here with one of our lead dogs, Saga. We're fresh off the Kuskokwim 300, where she placed 2nd. And we're looking to tackle the Iditarod. We'd like to take a moment and thank you for following the race and continue to cheer on your favorite team. We hope that's us. So we'd like to also take a moment and thank our sponsors, Alaskan Husky Adventures, our tour here in Willow, along with our booster club, 17th Dog Boosters, which is the backbone of our kennel. Thank you very much for being a booster. K2 Woodworking, Power Stroke Performance, Dr. Carson's, O'Mackerly Custom Knives, and Wolex, and also out of my home state, Phillips Tube Group. If you'd like to join our pack, please visit our website at akhusky.dog, Check us out on the Iditarod, and go Saga.
Mats Pedersen has completed his journey to Alaska from Sweden and will once again look to become an Iditarod champion. This former hockey goalie has 4 top 25 finishes. He's been on the back of a sled for 30 years now.
Hello dog lovers and musher friends, my name is Mats Pedersen. I'm from Sweden and running my 7th Iditarod. I think it's the most for foreign musher outside US, Canada. Today I have with me my friend Ranger. He's Ranger. What makes him special is like he never lose energy, he keep up the spirit all the time in the team. He finished with me 3 times to Nome the last 2 times in lead. So I want to thanks to all everybody volunteers and veterinarians and everybody put the race together. It's an honor to be part of it, and hopefully we're going to have a nice run to Nome, and I wish all my musher friends also happy trails.
A true contender every year and a champion in 2018, your Leifsif Olsson sets his sights on a 2nd Iditarod championship. 2021, a big year for him. He and his wife Margot have welcomed to the world their baby boy, Henrik. There will be another Olsson at home rooting for him this year. This is 10th Iditarod, and he's never finished outside the top 8. And it'll be back-to-back Norwegians at the start line. 22-year-old Hannah Lyric has come to Alaska to achieve the dream of running in this race. Team Norway will be well represented this year with this rising star on the European circuit. She's a team to watch for the Rookie of the Year award. Team number 14 will be 52-year-old Eric Kelly. He was born in New Haven, Connecticut, and now lives in Knik, Alaska. He's part of Daybreak Kennels and bit the bug when he met and helped Jamaican musher Newton Marshall get to the start line. Good luck to Eric. Riley Deich is next. He grew up in the cornfields of Iowa, playing baseball. Today he has his own kennel and is looking to begin his 3rd Iditarod, and his kennel is maturing. Riley has big hopes.
I have a small kennel, but every single dog is running at a high level, and I really like that aspect of the small numbers and building from the ground up. But it's slow, you know. I started in 2015 doing my first breedings, and I'm just now at a point where I have like a pool of 20 dogs that I think are really ready to race Iditarod, and then it's going to take another another quite a while to, you know, really be considered a contender.
Iditarod veteran Lev Schwartz is back, one of the great characters in this field. Born in the Ukraine, he owns an electrical engineering degree from Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh. Lev will set his hopes of the finish line for a 5th time, coming off his first top 20 finish a year ago. Ryan Reddington, a competitive team year in and year out. He'd love to get to the finish line first and be the first Reddington to own the trophy with his grandfather's name on it. He has 2 top 10 finishes now, with an 8th place finish in 2020 and a 7th place finish in 2021. The 17th musher wearing bib 18 will be Richie Deal from Aniak, Alaska. He's been in the top 11 his last 3 finishes and appears to have a kennel that is coming into its own. A yearly contender now, and the eyes of the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta will be on Richie, hoping that 2022 is the year he brings the trophy home. Katie Jo Dieter, a rookie, and has watched her husband Jeff compete all these years, and is now ready to begin her Iditarod career with her first attempt at Nome. A big part of Black Spruce Kennels, her preparation has been a process, but she sounds ready.
The thing that motivates me about running Iditarod is just seeing something new. I've been training with Jeff for the last 4 or 5 years around here at home on our home trail system, and by now I know all of these trails really well. They're all very doable for me, and so I'm looking forward to Iditarod as a new challenge for myself and for the dogs.
Bib number 20, the 19th team to leave the chute, will be Dallas Seavey. What more do we need to say? No longer a prodigy, but a grizzled, accomplished veteran now, and one of the best to ever do it. In fact, a 6th championship might end the conversation of whether or not he has any rivals in that discussion. Dallas will leave the chute looking to make history. Aaron Peck will follow Dallas, bib 21. From Grand Prairie, Alberta, a 14th place finish last year, he has his sights set on a championship. He's attempted on 8 occasions and is coming off his best finish. The process continues for Aaron. Joe Taylor from Fairbanks, Alaska, is one of 13 rookies in the field. He was born and raised in Fresno, California, and brings his team from his kennel called Mushing Malarkey, which is the nickname of one of his lead dogs, and it reflects his light-hearted approach to this sport.
Hey everyone, this is Joe Taylor. I'm a rookie running the 50th anniversary of Iditarod this year, and I'm here with one of my main leaders, Malarkey. He's the namesake of my kennel and a big goofy boy, and yeah, we're both getting pretty excited to run the race and looking forward to getting out on the trail.
Aaron Burmeister, team number 23, who claims this is his swan song, his final Iditarod, and he wants nothing more than to win this race in his final try. Born and raised in Nome, it'll be his 21st race, with 4 top 5 finishes, including a 2nd place finish in 2021.
This is my main leader, Dudley, and we're going to the 50th anniversary of Iditarod to bring a victory home to Nome this year. Hi, Dudley. Oh, good. You ready to go home?
Team number 24 will be Christy Barrington. Her 13th Iditarod will begin in Willow and finish 22nd in 2021. She and her sister Anna usually travel together on the trail and have become fan favorites throughout the years. 2010 was Christy's first race.
So in 2018, when I ran with my husband and we did the Iditarod together, Anna got, mostly 18 dogs, 80% of the best ones, and she did really well that year and had, got the opportunity to go out on solo and stuff. So I'm going to take that turn this year. And then next year, Anna gets the A team, which will probably have even more awesome prospects with our 2-year-olds that are going to be mostly on her team.
Deke, another musher from Iowa, will be team number 25. This former park ranger from the Florida Everglades National Park now lives deep in the Arctic and began mushing in 2008. His best dog is Princess Jasmine, and she'll be leading the way in his 2nd Iditarod. Deke finished 27th in 2020.
Hi, my name is Deke Knockaborn. I'm running the 50th anniversary of the Iditarod. It'll be my second one. This is one of my favorite dogs, Simba. We're kind of getting attacked by some puppies here. But Simba's my biggest dog. He's not a lead dog, but he's always super happy, and he's kind of a powerhouse. And he's kind of acts like a Labrador. And he's big, and he's, yeah.
Yeah, and he's small.
Ana Radano, bib number 26, started her own kennel in 2018 and has already 2 Iditarod finishes to her credit. It's been a few years since we've seen Ana, a 51st place finish in 2018 and a 35th place finish in 2019. She's back for her 3rd Iditarod. Brent Sass will begin as the 26th musher, and this could be the champion in 2022. This legend of the Yukon Quest has set his sights on a championship in the world's greatest race. He's made it to the finish line 5 times and has been in the lead pack the last 2 races, with a 3rd place finish in 2021. Wild and Free may be going big and bold in 2022.
Well, this litter is a culmination of a whole bunch of stuff. The male, like I said, is my main leader. He's out of Silver, or out of his granddad is Silver, my main dog from years back. I kind of got the kennel started, and so it goes back to those real genetics, and I've mixed in some Jeff King genetics and some Lance Mackey genetics over the years, and so it's all of a combination of all of that, but it all goes back to Silver. And this guy is a Silver son, Merc. He's 13 years old and wandering around, and that was sort of the original idea in the sled dog. I just wanted to make smaller. And so my whole breeding program since Silver has been just make Silver smaller and more athletic build so he'd be better at racing. And that's where these dogs have come from, you know. And the mom is also a 2nd generation Silver dog, and has some Jeff King on her side. And so, yeah, this breeding is super exciting, and it's from the dogs that I've had real success in the last 4 years.
And we wonder what's in store for Dan Caduce this year. A longtime veteran of the Yukon Quest and the Iditarod came face-to-face with a herd of bison last year in the Alaska range. He still finished in 16th place. He's got bib 28 in 2022.
Hey everybody, Dan Caduce here, back again with my leaders Titan and Phoenix for another Iditarod. You can see them here last year having a lot of fun with the bison. They liked it so much, they led me to one of the fastest finishes in the race last year from all the excitement they built up from seeing the bison.
Behind Dan will be another rookie, Julie Onin from Cantwell, Alaska. She grew up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan and followed the race in school in the 5th grade. She's worked under Jesse Holmes for 4 years and now sets her sights on her first Iditarod. She is focused on what will be a grand adventure ahead. A grand champion will follow. Mitch Seavey is back in the race after taking a year off. This 3-time winner will look to challenge his son in this, the 50th year of the race. This former wrestler is the son of Dan Seavey, who ran the race in 1973, and looks to become the 8th musher to win this race at least 4 times in a career. Matt Hall, a contender, a champion of the Yukon Quest at 26 years of age. He's now 30 and has a team that's coming into its prime. Out of Two Rivers, Alaska, he will be competing in his 4th Iditarod this year.
You know, some people I think get a little too wrapped up in seconds during a race. You know, for the most part, time stopped on the trail is going to be time made back up. You know, those, if you leave a checkpoint and you stop for 60 seconds and your dogs are rolling around in the snow and relieving themselves and you're going up and you're switching a dog around, that's super fun, that's positive for them, it's healthy, they need that. They're in the snow rolling around, shaking off. So when you're trying to get a little bit more speed, you know, it's not going to hurt you to stop and spend a minute and play with your team, try something new.
Amanda Otto, a rookie, and has been under the tutelage of the legend and 4-time champion Jeff King. Her grandfather, the great Jim Otto, and a Hall of Famer, who played football for the Oakland Raiders. Amanda will be competing for Rookie of the Year honors.
I definitely am very blessed, and I feel a little spoiled to be working here at Husky Homestead. Jeff has been really gracious and such a great mentor to me And obviously getting to work with his dogs day in and day out has just been the icing on the cake. So this has been kind of a dream come true, really, to be at Husky Homestead. If you had told me that I had been here training under Jeff King, getting ready to sign up for my first Iditarod 5 years ago, I would not have believed you.
Milla Porsild will wear bib number 33. This former Rookie of the Year from Denmark has exploded onto the scene and will be running her third Iditarod this year. A top 5 finish in her second race has a lot of people wondering if she'll be in position to win it in 2022.
I don't walk around thinking, oh, I'm going to win the race next year. But I'm absolutely going to shoot for the moon. And, you know, we may not win it, but hopefully we'll land among the stars. That's always been my motto in life. I walk around literally dreaming of having a team that I put in a position to have performed at the very best possible. And if that means that brings us in first, that's phenomenal.
Jeff Dieter, now 33 years old, and has been climbing the ranks in his 5 Iditarod attempts, a 59th finish as a rookie, and a 12th place finish in 2021. Jeff has become a yearly top 20 contender now and is looking to break into the top 10 for the first time.
Good evening, friends and fans of Iditarod 2022. I am Jeff Dieter, hailing from Fairbanks, Alaska, and out in front of my sled are my 14 athletes for this year's race. I'm pretty excited about these guys. Half of them will be running their 5th Iditarod, so that's a pretty big accomplishment for them. Another 4 members of this team will be running somewhere between their 2nd and 3rd race. And then for a couple members, 2-year-olds, this will be their very first Iditarod. So it's a pretty fun team, got a lot of energy and power, and I'm looking really forward to hit the trail. I hope that you guys are excited about the race and follow our journey. All the best.
Ryan Olson, bib number 35, was raised in Durango, Colorado. When she moved to Alaska, she went to work for Ali Zirkle and Alan Moore. This veteran of the quest is now a 3-time finisher of the Iditarod and is coming off her best finish of 18th in 2021. And she's not all about dogs.
These guys are like our pets, so we go packing and hiking with them. And then I don't know if they'll ever be as good as sled dogs when it comes to like actually pulling sleighs, but the novelty of it is pretty cool. And so we're training them to pull sleighs, and we use them in tourism, so kind of as a way to teach people about caribou. So they're not the same as caribou, they're different subspecies.
Up next is rookie Bridget Watkins. She is the daughter and stepdaughter of Alan Moore and Ali Zirkle. SP Kennel will be represented in 2022. Bridget is continuing her career as an emergency room nurse and has her own kennel now and is married with 2 children, who undoubtedly will be under that arch when she arrives in Nome.
Hey, I'm Bridget Watkins. I live here just south of Fairbanks. I live in Salcha, grew up in Fairbanks, and I'm running my first rookie Iditarod this year with this little gal on lead. This is Raz. She'll be my main leader, and I am very excited to celebrate this year. As are most, we have all come a long ways to get here, and just leaving the starting line is going to be a huge celebration for me. So I can't wait to get out on the trail and have lots more stories to tell at the end.
Pete Kaiser will wear bib number 37, and he's a threat to win. He's been dominating this race in Bethel this winter, and it's obvious he's got a fast team. And with his experience, he will undoubtedly be at the front. Pete has 11 finishes, 6 top 10 finishes, and of course a championship in 2019. Pete chasing number 2. Following him will be the incomparable Martin Boozer, 4 times a champion. This is 39th Iditarod. He's never scratched. 39 races, 39 finishes, and 19 top 10s. And his wife, Kathy, has been there every step of the way.
Unspoken, behind the scenes, more than 100% committed and more than 50% responsible for the success. And every time I make an appearance, every time I talk about success or planning, you cannot overlook your partner. And she chooses to be behind the scenes more often than not. But if you don't have somebody you can fully trust and work together with, it's not so much fun. It's a different journey. We have accomplished so much together, and now we try to enjoy so much together.
Gerhard Thwart will be behind Martin Boozer to begin, wearing bib number 39, born and raised in South Africa, served in their military. He came to the U.S. in 2010 and calls Sheboygan, Michigan home, and is racing out of the CV kennel. As to why? Well, he's racing to promote, support, and bring awareness to the needs of veterans. Karin Hendrickson, this one-time volunteer, will wear bib number 40. She moved to Alaska in 2003, and by 2008 she was signed up to race in the granddaddy of them all. Karin is out to reach Nome for a 7th time. Kaylin Davis is next, a rookie from Fairbanks, Alaska. And although race contender Wade Marge is not in the race this year, his dogs will be, as Kaylin will be running a team owned by Wade and his wife Sophie from Stump Jumpin' Kennels. Bib number 42 is Travis Beals from Seward, Alaska. He's been preparing for this race since he was a kid. Travis continues to live the dream and hopes to put his name on the Joe Reddington Trophy.
That starts to play the biggest role in doing well, is in really enjoying yourself and having fun, because it relays to the dogs and it's not a job to them. They really do pick up on this super enjoyable thing, and you kind of see a higher caliber performance from a team that's just super amped and having fun.
Lisbeth Norris is back in the Iditarod after taking 5 years off. She continues to run her family's bloodlines and will honor that history in the 50th race. Her line of dogs are called the Anadir Siberian, and she hopes to continue this many-decade focus on this breed by the Norris family.
I'm here with my lead dog, Christina. Together with my partner, Nils, our daughter, Story, my parents, JP Norris and Kari Skogan, we run Alaskan Kennels, which is the oldest Siberian Husky kennel in the world. It's been 5 years since my last Iditarod. In the years since, I've been working on building up my business, Arctic Dog Adventure Company, overnight and multi-day guiding company. And I am excited to be in a position to join the 50th running of the Iditarod Trail Sled Dog Race.
Sebastian is another rookie from France. He started his kennel with sheltered dogs, and he says they are not the strongest nor the greatest, but they are his family and they are his friends. Sebastian will be wearing bib number 44. Josh McNeil of Fairbanks had so much fun in 2020 that he's back for another ride. A 28th place finish as a rookie, and now he's back to travel the entire trail, the northern route anyway. Born in the shadow of Mount St. Helens in Washington, Josh hopes to blow the top off this race in 2022. Like Josh, Chad Stoddard had so much fun, he's back in the race. The 2021 Rookie of the Year is running a second team for Dallas CV. Chad grew up in Washington State and was an all-state basketball player, but his life has been all about the dog since graduating from Western Washington.
All right, this is Wilbur. Wilbur's a 3-year-old male from Dallas CV Racing Kennel. He did a few mid-distance races last winter with Letty and Elliot, who worked here with Dallas for several years. He'll be a rookie to the Iditarod this year, and he's a great lead dog and quite the cuddler.
After a few years away from the race, Apayak Ratan will be back on the trail. She finished the race in 2019 in 28th place. The daughter of Iditarod veteran Katil Ratan. She grew up working in her father's tour business, guiding tourists on the trip of a lifetime to see polar bears near her home in Kaktovik, Alaska. She hopes this will be a trip of her lifetime. Rookie Matt Paveglio will wear bib number 48, a native of Michigan. He now spends his days taking care of patients who've had their best years stolen by illness. And by training sled dogs, of course. Matt will be the 13th and final rookie on the trail in 2022. Born and raised in Japan, she now lives in Healy, Alaska. She's completed the Yukon Quest and finished in 55th place in the Iditarod in 2015. Yuka is back for another shot at the Iditarod Trail. And wearing bib number 50, and our final musher on the trail is Hugh Neff. He began mushing in 1995. He's finished the race 13 times with 2 top 10 finishes. He will be running Jim Lanier's team from White Dog Kennels. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is our mushing field for the 2022 Iditarod Trail Sled Dog Race.
So there is the complete mushers list. 49 teams, sun going down behind us here at Lake Hood. It means we are now minutes closer to the start of another Iditarod sled dog race. Okay, contenders. The defending champion Dallas Seavey won his 5th last year, tying the great Rick Swenson. I guess he's the favorite to win, which would be the 6th. You have to put him at the top, right?
But every race is different. You've got to earn it every time. The trail nor the dogs care what happened last year. But as I've said before, if you have someone that's dominating in one of these iconic periods, you have to beat them to win the race. You're always aware of what they're doing. Dallas definitely is the favorite, but there's a lot of people, a lot of good teams out there that I'm excited to see compete with him. And it's the trail to know.
It is, and that'll be a difference. And there are other former champions on the trail. Of course, his father, Mitch, a 3-time winner, is there. You've got Pete Kaiser, a former champion. Your Life's with Olson. Martin Boozer's out there as a 4-time champion. So there's a lot of experience behind him. Let's talk about Mitch. Back in the race, took a year off, allowed Dallas to use some of his dogs, and Dallas used those 4 or 5 dogs to build his team and create a winner. I saw on Facebook the other day, Mitch's team, he was excited about what he was seeing on that run. Like, there's energy again in this CV rivalry, father-son.
Yeah, but you know, they race independent of each other.
In theory.
In theory, but I mean, they're each competing against everybody. And what I like about Mitch is he always brings a really well-trained team. He doesn't get too excited in the beginning. He's a methodical predator. He knows what his dogs can do, and he's waiting for the final game. He often is back, and then in the last half of the race he emerges, or even in the last quarter or third. I like his draw this year. I think it's a good place to start because it's going to be a little later in the day, which means it's going to be a little cooler on a warm day. We've got Mitch, we've got Brent Sass coming off of another Yukon Quest Championship and some other races. I like what I've seen so far in Pete Kaiser's team. They look strong this year. He won the Cusco. He seems a little more fired up, a little more dominant. And I'm excited about Milla. The last couple races, she's been very impressive in the way she put dogs together from different kennels and the way she handled herself, especially last year when it was 50 below, and nice finishes.
Deal. Yeah, real deal. There are a lot of experienced mushers. Of course, Wade Mars, Jesse Royer, Thomas Werner will not be here to compete up in that contending group, but there is a bunch. Aaron Burmeister, right? A guy who finished 2nd last year. A lot of scuttlebutt out there about this being his final one, his retirement. I talked to him the other day on the phone. He's like, I'm not going to go that far. I'm not going to go that far. So I don't know if he's truly retiring, but I know the 50th year, it ending in Nome again, he wants to win this race as bad as any other time in his career.
Well, and look at his teams the last few years. He's always right there. It's just a little edge towards the end. You know, last year I felt like he got put in a position by Dallas, a checkmate. It was too far of a run for him to get to that final 8 hour without taking a little extra break. And it slowed his dog team down. But I mean, Aaron's had great dog teams, and he is hungry. It would mean a lot to him to win this race, I know. But all that aside, he's been right there at the top, knocking at the door consistently.
Yeah, and there was some, you know, somebody might call it controversy. I call it drama between he and Dallas last year. You know, Aaron not happy that Dallas was carrying dogs, and I'm not sure he thinks it's, you know, in the spirit of competition. Dallas is like, man, this is a race. You do what you need to do to win the race, right? So in the spirit of competition, I think Dallas certainly appropriate and right on that. I talked to Aaron again the other day, and I was like, so are you not going to carry dogs? You're going to carry dogs. He's like, well, I got something planned. So he might be carrying dogs to Nome this year. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. There's drama.
But there's always great rivalry in any sport. You follow a lot of sports between top competitors, and little things they always kind of chew on each other about. But there's a lot of respect as well. But there is some needling that goes on, and I know there was a little of that last year. Aaron said he was the first team to get to the finish line without carrying a team, our dog, I believe, which I don't think Brent did either. But it just builds the drama, the human aspect. But to me, ultimately, it's always about the dogs.
Regardless of the outcome, if I can look back and honestly tell myself we did what we could, then I can be proud of that. And if you're gonna live your life in sports, you better be very good at losing, because you're gonna spend most of your time at doing that. And that's part of being at peace with the outcome, is doing the job in a way that you can be at peace with whatever happens. I have no control over the other teams. You know, Mitch Seavey, Brent Sass, take your Aaron Burmeister, there's tons of good teams out there. I have no control. If they show up with a monster team and totally stomp us, no control. But as long as I know we did everything we could with these dogs, we trained them to perfection, we ran them to perfection, I can be proud of this race, regardless of if it's a first or a 5th place or a 50th place finish.
I mean, I definitely want a race that isn't just straightforward hard packed trail the whole way. There's no doubt about that. And I definitely don't want it 40 degrees the whole way. But weather is weather. You know, if you start letting the weather get into your head right now, then you're in trouble. At this point, it's just like, well, it's going to be what it is, and we'll be ready. We're ready for anything. I'm confident that I can do well in any condition that the weather throws at us.
Yeah, we'll see. That's what I'm trying to say, is I gotta run them and kind of judge it as I go. But I think I would be stupid to race it like it is a championship team. But if you take it easy in the start, at least you have the ability to start doing some longer runs and get in the mix. But I don't want to be running a tired dog team right from the edge, from the start, you know.
It was kind of a difficult, challenging year, getting everybody kind of on the same page, but had some young ones step up in the Cusco and do really well, and I'm going to have 5 or 6 2-year-olds in this Iditarod team, so it's kind of a you know, it's not a full team of youngsters, but it's definitely not a full team of strong veteran dogs either. So they're talented and they have potential, but it's one of those teams where you kind of got to get a ways into the race to see really what you're working with.
And so I'm kind of set up for, you know, I've trained to go to Qrill, I've trained to go to Ophir, I've trained to go, you know, as we need to go, and we can stop in McGrath too if that's what makes sense. I'm probably not, I mean, if I'm going too much further than Qrill, then I probably lost my marbles. But that's kind of where I'm at. Was that giving you an answer without giving you an answer?
My team is primarily last year's puppy team that Hal Hansen ran. As you guys know, my entire A team went to Dallas's place with my potential, my not running that year, but also potentially not running anymore, and I didn't want the dogs to sit. So yeah, I'm running primarily last year's puppy team, sort of grown up. I did get back a couple of, I think 3 dogs from Dallas that I'll be racing that were mine that I got back, but they're not ones that he raced with. They were not ones that made his team for 2021. So I have 1 dog in my team that has finished in a competitive race.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, a reminder to get those insider subscriptions, click purchase, help out the race. All of that money goes to ensure that these dogs continue this mission of running to Nome every year and to keep the dream of Joe Reddington alive. He was worried way back in the late 60s and early 70s the sled dog was disappearing from the native communities across this state. They were always such a big part of this state's legacy and tradition. So he wanted to make sure that they never disappeared, and he created this thing that we love so much called the Iditarod Sled Dog Race to ensure that their future. And of course, the event's been under attack now for decades, and we want to make sure that this thing remains viably strong, and the best way to do that is to become an Iditarod Insider. We're going to have enhanced live streams out there, 3 different going in many locations at once. Liz Raines will be out there again, creating coverage of our middle and the back of the pack. Bruce and I will be up front, but a lot of our live stream camera people now will also be offering analysis and some play-by-play. They'll be more engaged with the audience when they're out there, and of course we'll be there in Nome for the live finish for the champion. Is it going to be Dallas Seavey? I don't know, a 6th championship and put his name at the top. Of course, there's a few others, Jesse Holmes, Travis Beals, Richie Deal. It could be a really competitive pack. Rookies of the year, who should we keep an eye on?
Hannah Lyric.
Yeah, Norwegian.
She's been in Norway and racing over there competitive. She's a rookie. She's got a lot to learn about the Iditarod in an event that's this long, but definitely a good student. We also have Amanda Otto.
Yes.
And she is running a team out of Jeff King's kennel. I would say those 2 are going to be right in contention for possibly Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, and you never know. There's always a few rookies out there that jump up and are in position as we head to the coast. There's a few people that we do need to talk about, kind of throwbacks, right? Martin Boozer running his 39th Iditarod. I think he would admit he's, the dream of winning, I'm sure, is still there. Probably not going to be up in that lead pack when it's all said and done. Ramey Smith, he's well over 25 races now, or around 25 races. I don't think he's been out of the top 20. Boozer's never not finished, 4-time champion. These are legends.
Think about that. I mean, if he's run 39 and this event is 50 years old, not only is Martin always finished, Martin has had a lot of his handlers run a 2nd team. The thing I think I've always been impressed with Martin's kennel is his rookies running the race that he's worked with, our handlers running his 2nd team, have also always finished the race.
Yeah.
Ramey Smith ties back to the very beginning of this race, when his dad ran some of the early Iditarods in the 70s. Yeah, Bud Smith. So, you've got that generational aspect. Same with Dallas, too. Ramey and Dallas have the farthest tied back to the very beginnings of this race.
Just missing a Mackey?
I mean, 50 years of this race running, that's incredible. I didn't, that's just a lot of work that, these guys have been, all the mushers and race organizers and everybody that puts a race on, that, we've done this for 50 years. I think this is my 9th Iditarod, and that feels like a lot. So to think about 50, and that's quite the feat.
It's incredible. I mean, it's an honor to be here. It's an honor to be participating in this race. Of course, I wasn't quite born yet when they ran the first one. My mother and father were both very involved in it and helping make that happen and put it on. Of course, Dad was a dog musher in Nome, and so was my mom at the time, and he was a photographer for the very first few races and big organizer on the Nome end and putting in the trail all up and down the coast.
We talk about the old days. My dad, of course, was in the first race, and I might be the only person in this race that was there. I was his handler on his sled on the first race. There's photos of it somewhere. So yeah, it's the old days, and we talk about the changes and the differences, but we're not actually that sentimental of a clan, So the fact that it's 50 is only one more year different than 49 in the sense, but it is important to remember anniversaries and celebrate the past and the history and what got us here, and hopefully use that as a guide to go forward. But yeah, we have a lot of history to talk about.
He was an inspiration for all of us. He gave us all a platform that we could be involved with Alaska and celebrate our heritage as outdoorsmen, as trappers, as winter travelers. He believed in people fat biking the trail. He believed in skiers skiing the trail. He believed in dog mushers. He really believed in Alaska and everything that it held. And Joe Reddington was truly the epitome of Iditarod, and we would do well to study what he brought to it and try to bring more of that to it.
I'm Pete Kaiser, born and raised in Bethel, Alaska, and I've been running dogs my whole life. Safety is a very important aspect while running a race like the Iditarod. We actually put more miles in training out alone on the trail during the year than we do during the Iditarod. You got to have the right gear on. You look at the weather forecast, face masks, mittens, parkas, all the same gear every time. We carry stuff like rain gear just in case. It sounds crazy, but we run into some really crazy weather out there. So you really got to be prepared for anything from 50 below to 40 above. My success has been just part of a huge puzzle, and a key to a lot of that has been support from Donald Gold. So I'm very, very appreciative to Donald and what they've done for us.
Hi, I'm Greg Heister, and we are getting close to the start of another Iditarod sled dog race. And I just wanted to take a few moments to say hello, number one, and number two, to let you know that the Insider team will be again out on the trail in full force this year, bringing you all of that great content that you have enjoyed for years now, with grand improvements. If you've been watching, then you know all about the Qrill Paws Arctic World Series. The Iditarod is the culminating race in that coverage, and the entire team that you saw in Minnesota, Norway, and Russia will be here with analysis and in-depth coverage that you enjoyed in all of those races. Our tracker has been updated with a new look, a new experience, new graphics and information. It's going to be easier for you to now follow your favorite team and mushers. Trust me, you're gonna love it. So ladies and gentlemen, your investment today will allow these dogs to keep running down the trail and to perpetuate their purpose for years to come. So please, become an insider today. I'm Greg Heister, thank you for your time, and we hope to see each and every one of you out on the Iditarod Trail.
It's hard to explain Alaska to people from the outside. So we don't. Our job is just to set the stage and let Alaskans speak for themselves. Look out, world. GCI, Alaska's most advanced network.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Greg and Bruce, and sun is now down here at Lakewood. We are another night closer to the start of the 50th annual Iditarod sled dog race. Oh man, I've been around this thing for a long time too. I don't even really want to admit, but my first race was 1992, and I can remember I did a documentary on the 25th year of the race. I think that was 1997. And so here we are 50 years into this, and 25 years later after that, and I'm still here, just older. But I'm still just mystified by the event, Bruce. It still captures the imagination of people around the globe.
Yeah, and you know, if there's one thing I feel bad for the fans is they get to watch the race, but the great thing about this event is it represents a lifestyle.
Yeah.
The mushers spend their whole year preparing for this. They're raising puppies for 3 years from now. They're walking their puppies through the tundra during the summers. They're get out four-wheelers and start that training early in the fall.
Yeah.
It's a whole lifestyle, and it's that lifestyle of working and living with sled dogs, to me, that is the romantic, fun part of this. It's great the fans get to watch the race, but just realize there's chapters and chapters that occur before a dog team leaves the starting line.
That's why he's the best. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to about wrap it up now. Remember, become an insider. So important. We need you. We need you now more than ever. And our coverage will continue tomorrow morning, downtown Anchorage. The ceremonial start will happen. Remember, we did not have that celebration last year. Bruce and I will also be on Channel 2, KTUU, here locally in the state of Alaska. And of course, you can watch all of the live coverage
here at Iditarod.com. Then we're out in Willow for the restart on Sunday, and then it's off to Finger Lake. Bruce and I will be going to Finger. We'll have the snow machine crews out there. They'll be in Squentna early night. And then Bruce and I will be in Finger. We'll have a team in Rainy Pass Monday morning when the leaders get in there. The live streams will be up and going from Finger, from Rainy, so our coverage should be there. It's looking like there's going to be a lot of snow in that forecast, so fingers crossed we'll be able to fly and get there when we need to. But thank you, and celebrate this year. It's 50 years now of the Iditarod Trail Sled Dog Race, and we are absolutely honored to be a part of this magnificent crew and this team called the Iditarod Insider to bring it to you like the world's never seen it before, and that is always our goal. And we leave you with some images and all of the names that have been a big part of this Iditarod over these 50 years that are no longer with us. Good night, ladies and gentlemen.